Stop chasing transformation. You're not meant to transform. You're meant to evolve. I keep seeing videos that say things like, be unrecognizable in 2026. And that sounds empowering. But it also reveals something much deeper. Most people don't actually want to evolve. They want to erase who they've been. They don't want to be seen as who they used to be. They don't want to remember how they once felt. And many don't want the past version of themselves to even exist anymore. And I want to say this gently. That desire isn't wrong, but it's often misunderstood. The desire to transform is very often rooted in shame. It's that belief that who you were wasn't enough, that your past self should disappear. That old version of you isn't something to override or escape. And many of us learn this watching the world reward reinvention. We're shown stories of people who completely changed their lives by losing weight and becoming the most fit that they ever been their whole life, or by achieving overnight success and having wealth beyond their dreams. And while these changes can be meaningful, they don't always honor the deeper truth of lasting evolution. And they rarely tell the full story. The part where the weight quietly comes back, or when the success fades and they find themselves right back where they started. Why does this happen? Because real evolution, it doesn't come from replacing who you were. It comes from releasing past conditioning, aligning with who you're evolving to be, and integrating that truth so it becomes embodied. And when this happens, you can live as who you are becoming. I understand this deeply because I lived it. When I left my IT career, I didn't want just a new life. I wanted to no longer be seen as the engineer, the IT manager, the person I used to be. I wanted to transform. I even made transformation a core focus of my business. I created processes to help people transform their lives, to become someone new. And on the surface, it looked aligned. But as I went deeper into my own healing, something uncomfortable began to surface. I started to see that my desire to transform, it wasn't coming from love or honor. It was coming from the subtle rejection of my past. It was my ego saying, I don't want to be this anymore. And when this transformation is driven by rejection, it doesn't liberate you. It creates inner resistance and conflict. And that's when I realized I didn't actually want to transform. What I really wanted was to evolve. Transformation tries to replace you. Evolution honors who you've been as a part of who you're becoming. Transformation says, I need to become someone else. Evolution says, everything I've been is a sacred part of my journey. And that matters because our bodies aren't designed to just become someone else overnight. If you tried to go from being a marathon runner to a power lifter, instantly your body would resist or maybe even break. Identity works the same way. When you change something faster than your system can align to, it pushes back to restore familiarity because your system is trying to protect you. You see this all the time when people try to quantum leap into a new reality. They set a powerful intention, start moving in a new direction, and suddenly old conditioning gets loud. Sometimes it shows up as fear or anxiety, sometimes as procrastination or self-sabotage, and sometimes it's so subtle that you don't even realize what's happening. You just feel stuck or drained. When inner resistance doesn't have an outlet, the stress stays in the body. That's when people experience tension, exhaustion, or their system simply shuts down because it's trying to integrate change faster than it has the capacity to hold it, to feel safe in it. So what then actually creates real change? It's not about forcing transformation. It's releasing the emotional imprints that distort our relationship with the past. Emotional imprints are what turn memories into distortion. They cause the parts of us to resist moving forward. They're formed when something overwhelming happened earlier in life, and the nervous system creates this protective response to keep you safe. The issue isn't that this response exists, it's that it doesn't automatically update. So the body keeps responding to the present as if it's still living in the past. For example, imagine a child who learned that speaking up led to rejection or even punishment. In that moment, the nervous system made a very intelligent decision. It triggered fear and formed an embodied belief. If I stay quiet, I'll stay safe. That response protected the child then. But years later, that same response can show up even when you're an adult, in a meeting, in a relationship, or being seen online. There's no real danger anymore, but the body reacts as if there is. That's what creates the inner resistance. Not because you're afraid of success or visibility, but because an outdated protection system is misdiagnosing the present moment. It's applying this childhood survival response to an adult reality where it no longer belongs. And this is where resistance stopped feeling like an obstacle to me. It started feeling like an invitation, because when resistance appears, it's often revealing something unresolved from the past, a block, an imprint, a protective response that once made sense, but it now is quietly shaping the present, creating resistance, creating fear. So now, when the resistance shows up, I don't rush to push through it. I pause, I listen, and I ask a very different question. Not, how do I get rid of this? But rather, where is this coming from? Is this a real threat at this moment? Or is this an automatic emotional reaction rooted in an earlier experience, a fear, or a moment from childhood when my system learned how to survive? And instead of arguing with that reaction, I honor it. I allow myself to be fully present with what's arising in my body, without judgment, without force, without reinforcing the fear with my thoughts, and without needing it to go away. Because presence is one of the most powerful ways to heal. When you're present, your body is here in the moment, noticing that there is no threat. You are safe. It no longer has to predict the danger because there isn't any. And in that space, something begins to reset naturally within you. The stored energy behind the reaction can release. The imprint loses its grip, and the automatic response no longer takes over. What emerges instead is more access to clarity, to grounded choice, and the radiance that was always there. Not because you forced a change, but because you created the conditions for an outdated emotional trigger to release. This allowed me to show up fully in my power. You see, when emotional imprints are released, something profound happens. Your relationship with your past changes. You can look back from a higher state of consciousness and really appreciate where you've been. Really be present with the fullness of who you are, without shame, without uncomfortable emotional residue. This is alignment. Alignment is when the parts of you that were once in conflict begin to move in the same direction. And when that happens, your authentic radiance naturally begins to lead. Your authentic radiance is the energy you were born with, before all that conditioning, before shame, before disappointment told you who you should or should not be. It's the part of you that holds your true power. And this power isn't the power that dominates, but the power that elevates and inspires. And your radiance carries this unconditional love, joy, and deep aliveness for life. It's the source of your intuition, your intelligence, your wisdom. It's where clarity arises without force, where creativity flows without effort. This part of you is where your abundance, your inspiration naturally moves through you because it's connected to your soul's purpose. That radiance doesn't need to be transformed. It needs to be uncovered and allowed to shine. Everything changed for me when I stopped trying to be someone new and I started to honor all of who I've been. The engineer, the IT leader, the creator, the child who loved taking things apart to find out what made things tick. When I allowed all of me to belong, something clicked. I no longer needed to transform into a coach. I naturally evolved into an engineer of conscious evolution. I began engineering practical techniques for self-led conscious evolution, modalities that resolve inner resistance from the source so that your true radiance can lead, can shine. And once I saw this clearly, I realized how many people are standing at the same threshold. You see, most people sense the truth of their radiance, but they don't yet have a practical way to live it. That's why I spent years engineering tools that help you release emotional imprints, align with higher states of consciousness, and live from your authentic radiance without fighting yourself on the inside or chasing another version of who you think you should be. And that work, that became Elev8 Consciousness. It's a self-led, evolutionary app designed to support real, embodied, conscious evolution in daily life. If this way of understanding evolution resonates with you, you can learn more at elev8consciousness.com. You don't need to become unrecognizable. You need to become aligned. And when that inner resistance dissolves, what remains is the truth of who you always have been. Your radiance, your power, your love, your aliveness, your full inspiration for life. If this video supports your journey of conscious evolution, I invite you to like and subscribe.